DandaDan is a series that focuses on the paranormal, primarily aliens, cryptids, and Japanese yokai. Today we'll be ranking and explaining every yokai that's appeared in the story of DandaDan so far. If you enjoy content like this, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to this channel and my second channel where I cover the manga chapters weekly, and consider becoming a member of the channel to show your support and join the community Discord. Thank you for watching. But first, have you heard of the new manga called Boundless? Boundless is a grand, high-action adventure story like no other, with a vast world build, brimming with different entities, giant creatures, magic, spirits, and even demons. The story of Boundless surrounds a boy named Kai, who is the last of the fallen Kaji clan, and after being trapped in a cage, Kai is breaking out and burning with fury as he unleashes the mysterious luminous spirit within him. Don't miss your chance to get started on this awesome story. Check out Boundless on Manga Dex, link in the pinned comment and description. Much bigger review in the works and coming out soon. The musician tulpas, or music room portraits, are imaginary projections of the collective fear surrounding the picture frames depicting the 6 different musicians displayed in the school's music room. When terrible music is played using the instruments within the room after 2 a.m., the portraits of the musicians come to life and make hostile attempts to murder whoever dare dishonor their presence. Tulpas are a materialized being born from the collective belief and imagination of others, given power from how strongly others around them believe them to be. When the correct conditions are met, distorted forms of the musicians are summoned forth, appearing as Ludwig van Beethoven, Johann Sebastian Bach, Antonin Dvorak, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Gustav Mahler, and their conductor, Leonard Bernstein, respectively. By giving physical form to the musical notes they conjure up through their instruments, the musician tulpas are able to transform these real, solid notes into bombs that explode on impact with their target. With all 6 musicians performing at once, the onslaught of musical notes can become overwhelming. The tulpas can also play a range of symphonies whose songs have a different effect on the environment depending on which number is played, such as Symphony 6, that transforms the music room into a pastoral parish, where the ground is naturally tilled to make an opponent's feet sink into the dirt, immobilizing targets so they can't avoid the incoming musical note bombs. The tulpas have also conjured an entire opera house using Symphony No. 9, amassing an army of mindless opera chorus singers along with 4 giants that act as the tulpas' shields from external attacks. If any of the musicians are struck with physical attacks, they instantly return to portrait form, explaining why they're so focused on keeping their opponents away from them. And if the musicians lose their conductor, they are unable to continue levitating and must remain grounded to the floor, making them even more vulnerable to attack. An ombudsman is a type of yokai that climbs onto people's backs in search of love. In the olden days, they were originally known as old men crying, and would usually originate from the spirit of a deceased child that died in infancy. By accepting the ombudsman and giving it the love that it craves, the spirit can potentially pass on for good. But if the ombudsman is rejected, denied any attention whatsoever, it will grow continuously, getting larger and larger until it crushes its victim with its sheer weight. While the ombudsman may initially retain memories of its previous life, as it expands, its love for its host turns to resentment, eventually turning its desire for love into a want to kill. This occurs because the spirit of an ombudsman subconsciously manipulates the gravity around it, pulling in nearby spirits until it becomes large enough to outgrow its victim. This specific ombudsman was born from the regrets of Rin Sawaki's childhood friend, Mai Kawabanga, after she died tragically in a car accident with her mother. In their early elementary school days, Rin Sawaki, Mai Kawabanga, and a group of local schoolgirls worked tirelessly to perform as a children's pop idol group. They practiced their sound every day until they felt it was enough to enter a talent show as their primary debut. Due to Rin's single mother working overtime and having to provide for both Rin and her sick grandmother, Rin had to miss out on the competition and let her friends down. Her friends coldly rejected Rin after after this, especially Mai, the leader of the group, who denounced Rin as a traitor. Rin's grandmother realized just how much being an idol meant to Rin, and in trying to do the right thing, the grandmother allowed Rin to leave and meet up with her friends. Funnily enough, wanting to apologize on her own accord, Mai Kawabanga decided to drive with her mother to Rin's house and pick her up. And, well, we already know how that car ride transpired. As an ombudsman, Mai haunts Rin Sawaki for ruining Mai's dreams of being an idol, making Rin the sole person responsible, not just for her death, but for Mai never achieving her real potential as a singer. And despite Rin being mature enough to know that's just not true, Rin's childish view of the situation, as well as the yokai's resentment, forever taint that final memory between the two childhood friends. Until Rin is brought to the site of the original accident, where the former memories of an ombudsman's past life will return for just a brief moment. Those memories setting Mai's spirit free and turning the ombudsman into a purified spirit, returning the yokai to her original form as Mai Kawabanga. And upon the two of them finally being able to understand each other's sides of the story, they can officially accept one another's apologies, revoking Mai's evil intentions as a yokai and becoming more of a guardian spirit for Rin. As a guardian spirit, Mai Kawabanga is now resolved to make Rin a pop idol at any cost necessary, reminding the class representative repeatedly that this Mai isn't Rin's friend reincarnated or anything like that. She's a yokai that's haunting Rin to constantly remind her that if Rin doesn't chase her dreams as an idol, then Rin's life has no meaning. In this form, albeit less hostile, Mai Kawabanga is sharp-tongued and quick to insult the main cast, outright refusing to help them, and even Rin herself on occasions that could mean life or death. That being said, Mai is more than willing to let Rin wield her spirit powers and make use of them as Rin sees fit, as long as Rin promises to keep singing, of course. Hana and Taro are two anatomical models of the human body that, for some reason, have gained sentience. Be this through possession of deceased spirits or some other means, the two beings that inhabit these science displays don't seem to have any memories of a previous life, merely acting as if they've always been this way. The only thing these human mannequins do know is that they love each other. The male model, Taro, being the first to break his facade of being a simple science display by sprinting full speed out in broad daylight after Hana, the woman model, because she was thrown away by the school and being sent to the garbage dump. Taro is seen running through traffic, hopping over buildings, even being athletic enough to successfully shake Momo Iyase's psychic powers and Okarun with turbo grannies. Comparatively, Hana has unfortunately had all of her limbs removed, most likely the reason she was thrown out. But despite her protest for Taro to move on and forget her, the anatomical model declares he could never give up on Hana, prompting the protagonist to rescue Hana from the dump and let her stay at the Ayase residence where Taro can visit whenever he likes, so long as he continues pretending to be a science display during the day and only comes to see Hana at night. Although appearing as average anatomical models, Taro and Hana are actually pretty durable. Taro is able to survive getting hit by a truck and being split into pieces, even managing to put himself back together afterwards before sunrise so he doesn't miss his date with Hana. Taro also seems to have full control of the anatomical model inside and out, able to separate each individual organ or limb manually at a moment's notice, only to immediately slip that entire model back together after the fact. Taro does this to escape Momo Iyase's spirit grip, as well as trap the evil eye inside of his body, capturing the much more powerful yokai and restricting its movements entirely. Despite being able to live without any of their organs or limbs intact, they are still able to feel pain, seen when Momo Iyase stopped Taro from moving when she got a hold of Taro's heart and squeezed it, implying the anatomical model's organs are their weak points. The earthbound spirit crab is an amalgamation of numerous spirits, all composed of young women that had been murdered in close proximity to the tunnel in Shono City. Regardless of having no real desire to become an evil spirit, the violence surrounding the women unfortunately left them no choice. According to the spirit medium Psycho Ayase, when the dead cross the river to the other side, they transform into freshwater crabs, represented through this enormous polymerization of spirits conjuring this giant giant crab shape. The earthbound spirit's back is made up of the faces of the women who create it, and due to its weakness, the crab spirit was able to rely on and merge with another powerful yokai known as Turbo Granny, eventually growing to become the most dominant spirit inside of Shono City. Because both the earthbound crab spirit and Turbo Granny owned everything within Shono City's borders, the two of them are able to call for aid from every lesser spirit in the land, utilizing the massive graveyard on the outskirts of Shono City to possess the innocent civilians of the town and create an army of mindless zombies that can chase down enemies. The crab spirit has grown to such a size it can cause colossal damage to its surrounding area, or even destroy entire buildings with its claws or ramming through them. When fully fused with Turbo Granny, the earthbound spirit crab can maintain a consistent 100 kilometers per hour in speed, even managing to outpace a bullet train when it eventually has to slow down to turn. Once the earthbound crab spirit is exorcised, the freed ghosts of the murdered women are finally able to smile, finding peace on the other side at last. Acrobatic Silky is the spirit of a deceased woman who sadly took her own life. In the living world, Acrobatic Silky was a single mother who worked tirelessly to give her only daughter the best life possible. The mother employed herself with multiple jobs, even going as far as prostitution to pay for gifts for her child, neglecting her slow-stacking debt, all in hopes she could provide a little bit of happiness to the one person that mattered in her life, eventually leading to collectors coming to knock down her door and steal everything the mother owned, assaulting her and leaving her with literally nothing, even going as far as to kidnap her daughter, the beacon of light she cared so much about. No matter how far she ran, no hope remained. Her daughter was gone, and in a moment of weakness, so too was she. Acrobatic Silky danced atop a high rooftop in the storming rain, throwing herself from the peak and declaring life without her child no life to live at all. Her darkness and pain transformed the mother into a strong yokai, draped in red garbs, unable to recall her terrible past. One day, a young girl by the name of Ira Shiratori, in a brief moment of lucid paranormal phenomena, mistook the yokai for her own deceased mother. Although Ira never retained the power to see spirits, Acrobatic Silky attached herself to Ira for over a decade, falsely believing this girl to be the daughter she had lost long ago. This became the catalyst to Acrobatic Silky attacking Ira Shiratori once the girl regained the power to see spirits as a teenager. Upon noticing Ira Shiratori's awakening, Acrobatic Silky slowly stalked the teen before making her move, swallowing Ira whole when the teenager refused to call Acrobatic Silky her mother. The yokai being so brutally obsessed with the idea of motherhood, Acrobatic Silky even offered to spare Momo Ayase's life and take her as her new daughter if Momo just referred to the yokai as mother once. Despite being a fairly young spirit, to the point even older yokai like Turbo Granny aren't privy to her existence, Acrobatic Silky is quite powerful. The Scarlet Mother's biggest asset is her flexible body and extreme speed, surprisingly keeping up with or even outpacing someone like Okarun while using Turbo Granny's abilities. The yokai retains the acrobatic skills from her previous life, allowing Acrobatic Silky to deal concussive damage with her kicks, as well as manipulate the long tendrils of her silky hair to weave between or add extra attacks into her combos. Her hair allows Silky to extend her already impressive range, as well as bind or restrict opponents and other objects in her hair's grasp. However, being a yokai does not prevent Silky from natural human weaknesses such as hair being flammable. Acrobatic Silky is easily carried away in the moment, but her devotion to being a mother overrides all else. The yokai was willing to surrender all of its life energy in order to revive Ira Shiratori when Silky realized she accidentally killed her, even forcefully tearing off her own jaw to prove to the protagonist Silky no longer meant them harm. Because Ira was willing to comfort the yokai in its final moments, Acrobatic Silky was able to finally find peace and pass on to the afterlife, leaving her power in the hands of Ira and never becoming a threat to anyone again. The Evil Eye is a powerful yokai born from the hatred conceived during the sacrificial rituals performed by the Kito family. Originally a young and emaciated child held prisoner by the Kito family as their next sacrifice. The boy watched as 3 children ran, laughed, and played together from behind a low basement window, wishing he could join them and one day play a game. Unfortunately, that day would never come, as the boy was burned at the stake soon after, delivered as flesh for the great snake to feed upon. Yet, the child spirit carried on, somehow remaining a peaceful and well-meaning yokai. This child would continue to appear to future families meant to be sacrificed to the Tsuchinoko as a ghost, sometimes even attempting hopelessly to save the offerings from meeting the same fate he did. But these repeat failures would eventually drag what was once an innocent child down to hell, transforming him into a being of pure hatred, known only as the Evil Eye, a being that, just from looking at it, can induce a victim into a state of wanting to unalive themselves. The Evil Eye eventually distorted itself from its childlike appearance to become a ghastly, stretched out shell of its former self, now maliciously haunting the offerings of the Tsuchinoko in hopes that it may find a proper vessel one day to emerge and take its revenge on the Kito family, planning to wipe out all of humanity to cleanse the entire world of evil. Eventually, the Evil Eye would meet Jin and Joji, otherwise known as Gigi's goofy ass, who, after realizing that the Evil Eye was only trying to protect his family from the ritual, Gigi ignores Turbo Granny's warnings and accepts the Evil Eye's offer of possession, allowing the yokai to achieve its dream of slaying humanity. While inside a human vessel, the Evil Eye fully puppets the host body at a physical level much higher than it should normally be capable of. The Evil Eye can effortlessly outspeed characters like Okarun using Turbo Granny's power, to the point the Evil Eye can act 4 times in the time it takes Okarun to act once. The yokai can also throw powerful punches or kicks that can obliterate entire buildings, or even split open Kerr exosuits in a single blow. But the Evil Eye's largest threat is most definitely the orbs made of pure grudge it can conjure. Balls shaped out of the centuries worth of grudges born from the Kito family's sacrifices. These grudge balls are extremely durable, able to bounce off solid surfaces and home in on opponents, or outright crash through enemies to rip them to pieces. The outcome simply depending on how much force the Evil Eye decides to put behind them. The Evil Eye can also manipulate these grudges in order to conjure structures such as the Cursed House, a barrier made of pure aura that can protect the Evil Eye from attacks, trap other enemies inside with him, or inversely, outright imprison victims and hold them in place. These conjurations of pure emotion are said to reject everything around them, even denying a veteran medium like Psycho Ayase from exercising its presence with talismans. However, a Cursed House was shattered with the combined force of both Okarun and the Evil Eye, showing it's really only as powerful as the yokai can make it. Despite its genocidal intentions, the Evil Eye is still a child at the end of the day, its long neglected desires to play with other children being twisted into a sadistic purpose, causing the yokai to believe activities like killing or having intense fights is the same as a game in a children's sandbox. This is why when meeting an equal match in Okarun, the Evil Eye is more than willing to postpone world domination in favor of having fun with the protagonists. Emphasis on postpone, because the moment the Evil Eye stops enjoying his weekly fights with Okarun, world domination is definitely back on the table. But since then, the Evil Eye has become a great ally to the protagonist crew, helping them fight off enemies as long as they can fool him into thinking it's all a part of the game. The Evil Eye also learns to coexist with Gigi, only swapping place on Tuesdays to fight Okarun, or if Gigi is sprayed with cold liquid. And the only way to really subdue him completely is with hot temperature liquids. Funnily enough, at this point, even if the Evil Eye manifests accidentally, the yokai upholds its promise to Okarun and humorously just carries out whatever one of Gigi's daily activities he finds himself in. Brella Boy is a peaceful yokai born from the spirit of a deceased Futazuma, younger brother of Unjizuma. In spite of their father's death due to work exhaustion and the crippling poverty that came with their widowed mother unable to make ends meet on her own, Futazuma was an abnormally bright child. With the guidance and protection of his older brother Unji, Futa never felt fear or sadness, finding all the happiness he could ever need in his cherished pair of rain boots and umbrella, treasures that Futa carried with him wherever he went. And when Futa was bullied for never being caught dead without them, Futa still managed to smile, even through the bloody noses. At least that was until one stormy night when Futa's umbrella was stolen by the wind and cast to sea. By the time Unji made it to the coastline, the ambulances had already been there for minutes, adding another haunting death to an already grieving family, down from 4 to 2. As a yokai, Umbrella Boy appears similarly to a Japanese yokai named Kasa Obaki. Despite Umbrella Boy's massive strength, the yokai only shows itself to aid his once older brother Unji in stopping the cycle of death from continuing any further. While possessing Unjizuma, Umbrella Boy is able to fulfill Futa's once seemingly hopeless dream of soaring through the sky with an umbrella, as the umbrellas Unji is able to conjure can generate large shockwaves that either decimate objects in its path or launch Unji at extreme speeds over large distances. Unjizuma is usually only limited to 2 umbrellas per day. However, when Umbrella Boy's power is forced past its ordinary limits by the Fairy Tail card, Umbrella Boy is able to rocket off what seems like an endless barrage of shockwaves, much more powerful than the ones used by Unji, all at the risk of destroying Unjizuma's body from within the longer this maximum output continues. When realizing its full potential, Umbrella Boy was almost able to defeat an entire army in battle. Yet even once its rage was finally quelled, the yokai still had no desire to use its power ever again. Unjizuma was only able to recall Umbrella Boy's strength when using Okarun's golden ball, as its power was truly only meant to be a one-time use, so Unji could save the remaining lives he cared about. Umbrella Boy would eventually make its way over to the afterlife with the rest of the Zuma family, and finally put its unstable strength to rest. Turbo Granny is an infamous and ancient yokai that was previously fused with the earthbound spirit crab in Shono City. Usually depicted as an elderly woman that's capable of running speeds of 100 kilometers per hour, Turbo Granny prides herself on her agility, never saying no to a race, and placing a curse on any challengers who either give up mid-race or just lose outright to her extreme speed. Through her curse, Turbo Granny is able to take possession of her victims, transforming them into a near mirror image of herself, and usually sending that victim into a frenzy. The curse is also able to affect people through mere sight alone, Turbo Granny holding the power to make one's nose bleed from only seconds of exposure, eventually leading to the desired victims dying from a stroke or heart attack at Turbo Granny's whim. As a yokai, Turbo Granny is able to materialize herself with the appearance of an older woman, sporting a massive gaping maw to bite off her victim's reproductive organs. But the yokai is so powerful, it can even manifest as pure spiritual aura, resembling a ghastly form that can use its malicious presence alone to harm targets. While in this spiritual form, Turbo Granny can remotely control any being she's laid a curse upon, communicating through them and creating a time-freezing pocket dimension that only Turbo Granny and her chosen curse victims can exist inside of. Due to Turbo Granny's fusion with the earthbound spirit crab, she has become the dominant yokai in Shono City. As a result, her powers are vastly amplified by home field advantage, as well as allowing Turbo Granny to seize control of all the deceased spirits residing in Shono City. Despite Turbo Granny's apparent foul nature and innate hostility to all beings that challenge her, the yokai does have a hidden side of compassion. The real reason Turbo Granny merged with the earthbound spirit crab, revealing that the yokai was using her power to comfort the deceased souls of the murdered young women, actually protecting them on their cycle through the afterlife. This quote-unquote heart of gold is seen time and time again once Turbo Granny is forced to ally herself with the protagonist group, the yokai's essence becoming trapped within a stuffed Maneki Neko doll once defeated, unwillingly becoming well acquainted with Saiko Ayase and the protagonist's children, building an unlikely friendship that the Turbo Granny reluctantly walks away from once getting all of her powers back, choosing surprisingly not to take revenge on everyone when Okarun receives his golden balls. As an ally, Turbo Granny acts as the protagonist's lexicon on all things supernatural. The yokai's old age and deep understanding of spiritual culture grants the protagonist knowledge they wouldn't normally have. While she is unable to use her Turbo Granny powers in the doll form, Turbo Granny does take on the mythological features of luck said to spawn from Maneki Neko dolls, as the yokai can subtly influence events of the story wherever she goes. Unfortunately, the Maneki Neko's good luck does not discriminate and is unable to distinguish distinguish friend from foe. With Okarune's testicles returned to him, Turbo Granny's assumedly returned to her home in Shono City as well. Considering Turbo Granny is aware of who Count Saint Germain is, it's possible this is not the last we've seen of her. The Fairy Tale card is a major yokai that was sealed many years ago within a cursed trunk, known as the Danmanra. Using the power of 4 guardian deities, as well as a crystal core for the seal's foundation, the Fairy Tale card's strength was trapped within the Danmanra, with no hopes of escaping through its own merit. The yokai was not completely powerless though, as it was able to use its influence over the cursed trunk structure to create a pocket dimension within its walls, and put faith in the subtle manipulation of humans, making it resemble a detailed fantasy board game filled with numerous challenges and mindless NPCs. With the passage of time, those who once sealed the yokai away were long forgotten, and the Danmanra easily slipped back into the human world as any other oddity sold at an antique store. Should anyone come into contact with and open the Danmanra, they would instantly shrink to the size of a board game piece and become trapped in the cursed trunk's pocket dimension. The Fairy Tale card used its limited knowledge of humans to make the board game survivable and inviting, filling the world with candy and sweets for sustenance, and changing the guardian deities into winnable boss fights. The main inspiration for the Fairy Tale card's cursed trunk is the story of Jumanji, a magical board game that conjures its dangerous fantastical setting in the real world as it's played. This reference is reinforced by Unjizuma's closely linked name to the story. Once fully realized, the Fairy Tale card grows to inhuman sizes, multiple thick tendrils carrying giant playing cards at their ends, each representing one of the human senses respectively. By activating one of these cards, the Fairy Tale yokai is able to remove the corresponding sense from the human anatomy that's reflected in the playing card symbols. By making use of the Fairy Tale card's eye card, all enemies in the area will have their eyes erased, and if the ear card is played, their hearing becomes deafened by a loud ringing noise, and so on and so forth. This puts the Fairy Tale card's opponents at a major disadvantage, while its colossal size and tendrils are given full reign to attack its impeded targets. The Fairy Tale card's largest asset, though, is its ability to corrupt the human mind with its darkest thoughts, making use of someone's innermost trauma to transform them into a mindless pawn of hatred. The Fairy Tale card can only possess those that make direct eye contact with it. However, the amount of humans the yokai can manipulate seem to be unlimited, meaning it can easily make use of its other pawns to physically force open the eyes of other targets. The Fairy Tale card is able to drive a person's spiritual potential to its maximum output, usually at the cost of that victim's life force. By amplifying a controlled Unjizuma's power level, the possessed spirit medium broke his daily limits of spirit power, nearly dying from overexerting every last drop of energy to perform the Fairy Tale card's bidding. This mind control can be broken though if the main face of the Fairy Tale card is attacked. Unfortunately, the yokai's playing cards will just regenerate from the source, unless they are attacked all together or in pairs. After its defeat at the hands of the protagonist cast, the Fairy Tale card is reduced to a small, pocket-sized furball. Its remaining power is then absorbed by Count Saint Germain, who maximizes the Fairy Tale card's power to an even higher degree than its original owner, being granted dominion over seemingly both hands and feet as well, leaving the now defenseless, pathetic yokai in an unknown status, left to roam forever as a weak ball of hair. Reiko Kashima, better known as Kuchisaki Onna, or the Slit-Mouthed Woman, is well known across the country of Japan as the most powerful yokai of all time. Little is known about how Reiko Kashima came to be, other than that she represents the spirit of a deceased woman who was once madly in love, that lost her life to an air raid bombing during a war-torn time period of the country. Reiko Kashima has since become the essence of narcissism, the yokai's obsession with her own appearance constantly leading Reiko to ask unlucky passerbys if they think she's pretty, incurring the yokai's wrath should they answer in any way that slightly offends her. Due to this extreme ego, Reiko Kashima can truly only be fond of people or objects that she deems uglier than herself. If Reiko Kashima chooses, she can trap these poor souls inside of her mirror's pocket dimension, able to compare Reiko's own beauty with the victim's ugliness until she tires of them. This method can backfire on Reiko though, shown when Bamora and Momo Kashima block Reiko from seeing her own reflection in the mirror, something the yokai can't stand, but even worse, the two of them act so cute, they begin to overshadow Reiko Kashima's looks, forcing her to eject them from her mirror's pocket dimension. Ironically enough, Reiko Kashima's monstrous appearance is due to an overabundance of makeup, as whether Reiko is aware of it or not, the yokai is actually extremely gorgeous underneath this yokai makeup. Her stretched wide mouth and teeth, as well as unkept hair, giving way to a modest, easy on the eyes face with pretty features. As the strongest yokai in the known world, Reiko Kashima has shown power unlike any other spirit. When first encountered, the yokai moves so quick, Momoyase is only able to chant the word pomade, a warding spell used to temporarily remove spirits from the living world, twice before the yokai interrupts and slams Momo into a wall. Even with Bamura's full kaiju form landing a barrage of repeat punches, not a single hit phases Reiko, the yokai continuing its conversation mid-combo, ignoring the kaiju's immense strength and suplexing the exosuit as if it weighed next to nothing. Reiko Kashima can tear down buildings or even entire city blocks using her bare hands. But the yokai's greatest strength lies in her ability to manipulate mirrors. Just as she was able to trap humans within her mirror dimension, Reiko can extend this alternate space to any reflective surface in at the very least a city-wide radius, able to remotely teleport her attacks to any of these surfaces, or pulling them to her location by grabbing onto them or keeping them from moving, ultimately being powerful enough to trap an entire Kur invasion consisting of tens of thousands of different warships and individual fleets, all inside of her pocket mirror dimension, and sending it all to oblivion with a single all-encompassing barrage of punches. Reiko Kashima can also use her control over mirrors in more roundabout ways, even being able to hypnotize people by making eye contact with them through a mirror. Reiko is able to perform surveillance on any of her targets through her mirror from afar by connecting the dimension to other reflections, using this information to emotionally manipulate that person into revealing themselves either through intimidation or replicating a person's voice to lure them into her grasp. Despite being a yokai of malicious intent, Reiko Kashima is somewhat aware of her previous life, having a strong hatred toward aerial bombardments due to the way she originally perished, as well as knowing in her heart of hearts that love is the most important thing of all, choosing to forgive her grudge against Momoyase when the yokai sees her hopeless romanticism towards Okarun and not wanting to take love away from them, an action that gives Reiko Kashima the confidence she needs to go out and find her own man. And that's every single yokai that's appeared in DanDaDan so far. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and don't forget to hit that like button and check out my other channel if you want more daily content. Peace.